Hello, everybody. It's Joe Richardson here. I'm here to do the review on Ant-Man and the Wasp. Well, one of my friends, well, actually, he's the boyfriend of one of my friends. I am getting acquainted with him on Facebook, but he gave me this request, and I decided to fulfill it finally. So, after watching it twice, I think I got a pretty good knowledge of the movie. I can get into the gist of it. So, yeah, Paul Rudd is back as Ant-Man. About the only name I recognize, even though there are other notable casts in this movie. But yes, he's back as Ant-Man, and then you got the woman who plays Hope, and then the daddy, the one who plays the dad, who's trying to find the daughter's mom, which is his wife. So, yeah, so the woman's Hope, and her dad is Hank. So, So the point of this movie is, at first, in the introduction, Scott, who's Ant-Man, he's still on house arrest, and he has only like 3 days left before he gets off of it, and he has this weird dream where he about Hope being a little girl and hiding in the closet where her mom finds her every time, and then she she goes on a business trip, or her and her mom and dad go on a business trip. They're, of course, Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's what they were. And unfortunately, when they were on their mission to stop the rockets from launching, they they couldn't just stop it like they wanted to. She had to go inside, like into the, what is it called? Into that little world. She had to like shrink herself into that little world, like in the first movie where Ant-Man was in it, and then he got himself out that subatomic particle world or whatever. Yeah. So she goes in there and is actually, she's been in there for 30 years at this point, but that's how she was able to disable the bomb, is by shrinking herself small enough to go into that world and not come back out. He was actually Hank was actually supposed to do it, but his he wasn't able to get it to enable, so he unfortunately was not able to go into the machine and disable it like she was. So he comes back saying her mom didn't make it, and that's a sad moment to start the movie. But the guy also felt her in his dream as the current version of herself. So apparently, he calls Hank and says he had a dream, and he explains it, and then that's when Hope comes to get him while he was asleep. So that's the start of the movie, basically, is that he explains his dream to Hank and Hope, and that's the only reason why they even came for him, is because they found out, they figure she's still alive after he explains the dream to both of them. So Scott, yes, so Scott is useful to them, and he will prove to be that. Although the new Ant-Man suit he gets, unfortunately, this is going to be one thing I don't like about the movie, is his malfunctioning suit. That it works at times, but it also don't work a lot of the time. There's gonna be times where the suit fails him, but Hope's gonna have to fix the suit every time it malfunctions, basically. So you'll see if you ever watch it that he's gonna have to get help with that suit every time. Because he can either be tiny, like real tiny, or he could be real tall, like 85 foot. You're going to see that you would see throughout the movie that he's going to be either really big or really small or regular size in that suit. So that's kind of funny though, the malfunctioning, but not really my favorite part of the movie. It's actually like, why does the suit have to malfunction? If you understand that malfunctions are no fun, well, of course, in this movie, the case of a suit malfunctioning is not a fun thing to watch. But it just depends on what you like, I guess. If you think it's funny, I'm all for it. But not me, not too much. I was thinking, why does the suit have to be a work in progress, like Hank said? And he doesn't believe the suit was a work in progress, not Scott. He really thought the suit let him down a lot of the time. So we're gonna get into more characters. So we got this guy who sells technology. Birch is his last name. Can't remember his first name, but we'll call him Mr. Birch. And he's got his man that are useful for different reasons. But Birch has been selling technology, and he's not a man you really want to do business with. And then you got this character, Bill Foster, who used to work with Hank, and he has a backstory or having a history of being fired by Hank at S.H.I.E.L.D. And then you got, it's not his daughter, but it's a former colleague's daughter of both Bill and Hank's, that the daddy of the daughter had passed when he was trying to do research after being fired by Hank. And of course, him and the girl had both the daddy who used to work for Hank die and the mama as well. But she survived, but without her cells were, in place and having to be stitched together. So she could feel people at times, and then there were times where you could just go right through her, and she could go through things too. They call her Ghost. That's what her name is in the movie, but her actual name is Ava. And she ain't really as bad as you'd think she is. Bert's just the real bad guy. But Ava is sort of a villain too, and Foster's not really too bad of a villain. He's only trying to protect Ava, and he never really wants harm on anybody, which is what Ava does, and he doesn't really like that about Ava. But he knows that there are certain things he lets Ava get away with, but he doesn't want Ava doing everything wrong. So yeah, so the guy's name is Phil Foster, and yeah, he's like basically watches over Ava, aka Ghost. She's actually she's kind of interesting. She's an interesting character for sure. Sorry, my saliva. But yeah, she's definitely interesting for sure. But yeah, her characters, to me, I don't get too mad at this Ant-Man movie like I did the first one. I don't think now the only person that would even remotely make me mad is Birch, because he's actually worse. In a way, he's worse than Ava. He's actually terrified of Ava, but he never actually intends on harming Ava. He's only intending on harming the good guys, which is Ant-Man and Wasp. Hope, Scott, Hank. But yes, but yeah, they got the lab that they shrink and unshrink, and they have to move different locations for the lab. And the point is, they're trying to get Hank's wife back to Earth or to the reality. And there's always and I'm not gonna give much away like I normally do in my reviews, but I'm gonna say this: the point is they have obstacles they had to avoid, and it's Scott being on house arrest and having to show up at certain times which the ankle monitor is taken off of him every time he leaves that house. They put it on an ant that's for form to do his normal routine at the house, which is kind of funny actually. But I will say this also that there's always obstacles like that, and then you got to worry about Ghost, aka Ava, and then you got to worry about Birch and his gang of criminals. But you also got Scott's good guys, not outside of Hope and Hank. He has his Louise and the two other guys that work for him at their security place. One of the guys is played by T.I.P. or T.I. Harris, the rapper. He ain't in too many scenes, but he does have some appearance in the film. And then you got this other guy that works for him that's kind of weird. Although Luis is really the boss because how Scott can assume the responsibilities that Luis can due to the house arrest. So Luis is actually considered a boss, and I do like Luis a lot because he actually proves to have some usefulness in the scene at times. And he ain't really that terrible. He's just kind of funny, I would say. But the other two guys, they actually help him when those bad guys are about to get him towards the end of the movie. But the two guys that work with him and Scott actually tased two of them man, and then the other guy kind of just surrenders. Birch just ends up surrendering. So there's that. So really, the point is they have to keep moving the lab until they can find a spot to get. So originally, Hope was going to go into the quantum world to find her mom, but instead Hank chooses to go because her value in the real world is even more useful, as her and Scott can defend the lab and go and defend, what I'm trying to say, defend from bad guys and try to get the lab back from the bad guys if they do choose to take it, which shows up. It shows that the lab has to keep moving around, and they, even though so let me cut to the chase. So basically, Hank does go to the quantum realist or whatever it's called, and he's having trouble getting to where he needs to go because he loses signal, and when he finally gets signal, he does get to where he needs to go, and when he thought he was about to, pass out or whatever, or he was asleep, his wife comes to the aid and wakes him up, and he's having a dream, and then all of a sudden it just seems real that she's there talking to him, and they get back in the what it took down there, and they're waiting for the lab to be available. So they have a conversation, and she talks about how it didn't only take adaptation, but she also gained power while down there for 30 years. And that's the point. But meanwhile, Scott's becoming a giant when he finally takes the lab from that guy. And then Ava is actually near death, or near losing all her cells at a certain point in the movie, where maybe 2 weeks is all she has. So the point is, she needs the lab to try to get her cells together, and that means killing Janet, who is the wife of Hank. She would risk that rather than have Janet come out and help her, which Hank's former colleague Foster was trying to tell Ava she could help you. Maybe she could help you, and Ava's not falling for it. She wants things her way, and the point is, Hope and Scott basically have to keep Ava from, you know, reforming her cells before her mom and dad are back from the quantum realist or whatever it's called. So yeah, but also the bad guys, there's a lot of cars crashing and stuff, and a lot of motorcycles like shrinking and stuff. It's pretty cool to see that you see a lot of shrinking and growing, and of course, Ant-Man looks like a whale when he grabs the lab from Birch. He's like a big whale in the water. Then he stands up and grabs that lab, and of course, Birch is of course, truth serum is part of the movie too, which Birch and his men are given, and they tell the truth and are arrested. And and while Ava is trying to take the powers away from Jenna and possibly kill her, was well, Scott and Hope stop that, and they basically have to run around and attack her until they come back up, which Scott saves Hope from what could have been a potentially death when Hank and Janet came back up. But Ava gets hit hard, but not dead. Of course, when Janet comes out, Hope is crying because that's her mom and she hasn't seen her in forever. But Janet obviously knows who Hope is. And then Hank comes out, "What about me?" And then, of course, Hope gives him a hug and is happy to see both have made it back. And then Janet turns her attention over to Scott and says his name. He says, Mrs. whatever, Plum. It's nice to, and then he says, "I guess we've already met." She says, "I guess we have." So Janet pretty much already knew Scott based on him being down there and being in his mind, basically. So what I didn't, so everything looks good. I mean, so basically Scott gets off of house arrest, even though he was supposedly caught not being where he was supposed to be. But he gets off house arrest because they really couldn't find the evidence that showed that he wasn't at home. There are a couple of times where he could have been caught, but was seen up in the house after distractions were gone. So cool, but at the same time. So as the credits are being shown at the end of the movie, so his daughter Cassie does have a. So Scott's daughter Cassie is involved in the movie and even helps create distractions and actually likes that he's an Ant-Man. And actually wishes she could be his partner, but unfortunately she's a kid and that he said that couldn't happen, but he has Hope as a partner. And of course, him and Hope are lovers. I mean, he had gotten in the first movie. If you watch it, he did get divorced from his wife, but he still had Cassie in his life, and he did fall in love with Hope after the fact. So that was good. And that she actually looks better in this movie. The actress, she looks a lot better in this movie than she did in the first one. Just had to point that out. But as the credits are going off, everything's good. He's off house arrest and 3 years probation. Can go see his daughter. Can take her anywhere. So after that, they are watching a movie on a laptop, shrunk in size. Well, that's pretty much the end of it. But when the credits are going off, I see at the end that Scott is trying to get energy from the quantum world, and while he does, they like Hope, Janet, and Hank all disappear. So That's crazy enough to show that. But there is no, I don't think there's going to be a part 3 because I think Marvel movies are going to stop being made after a couple of them this year. Which the final Avengers movie and then the Spider-Man movie are supposedly the last two. So unfortunately, I don't think we'll get to see a third Ant-Man movie. But that's what I have. I hope you liked this review. Don't forget to like, subscribe. I'm sorry I had to leave out some scenes like everybody's aftermath or what they're not aftermath, but everybody's result. So because it actually was good results for everybody, but you just got to see the movie yourself, and I hope you enjoy. But remember, like, subscribe. Don't forget to view all my reviews if you are into these reviews. And as always, I know I've been going through a tough time, but I love every one of y'all who are supporting me and viewing all these reviews. I just want nothing but love for you guys, and even with me going through a lot, I'm just thankful to have everyone in my life who is showing me support for this, and everyone who is my friend outside of this. So thank you all, and I hope you enjoyed this review. I did the best I could, and as for the guy who I did this review for, I hope I didn't disappoint you. I did tell you some things I liked and didn't like. I hope that alone was enough. But great movie, has flaws, but is a good Marvel movie as usual. So thank you all. And until next time, gotta figure out what's gonna be next. Alright, goodbye.